relevant, reliable, and researched. This is Experts on Call, the show focused on delivering leading-edge news and information on today's most beneficial products and services. This is Experts on Call on AM 650.
Another musical inspiration from our guest, Tony Giventu, Executive Director of the Condominium Homeowners Association of British Columbia and the Music Director of Quay Pacific's Talk About Strata. I'm Sterling Fox in studio with Tony, and me is our special guest this week. Larry Buttress is the Deputy Executive Officer of the Real Estate Council of British Columbia, a group that has been around since 2006. And the act came out, the Real Estate Services Act, Larry, you were saying, in '05. And your council was created the following year.
Well, actually, the Real Estate Council was created in 1958.
Oh, my.
But it became self-regulatory in 2005, and then the licensing of strata managers was brought into being effective January 1st, 2006.
Okay. Back to real estate agents. We're on full bore here with the strata subject, but I want to talk a little bit about real estate agents.
Sure.
With respect to the upgrades. You mentioned that, as in any other profession, there are requirements for real estate realtors in British Columbia to upgrade themselves and their professional skills on a semi-regular basis, at least once every 2 years, in order to get relicensed. So given that there is that expectation, how comfortable are you that realtors in British Columbia are as up to speed as they are supposed to be?
I think we're pretty comfortable with that. One of the benefits of my job is I get a chance to see how real estate regulation operates throughout North America. And I think that British Columbia is probably one of the most sophisticated regulatory environments in North America. And so while we've got 21,000 people that we regulate, and in the trading services sector, a substantial portion of the business is done by a much smaller number than that.
Sure.
So we have lots of real estate licensees out there who are not participating as frequently in the marketplace as the really active, the core group.
Right.
I believe that that real estate licensees, by and large, are well-educated, ethical people who are keeping up to date. This is an extremely complex business that we're involved in, and as you've mentioned, there's a lot of money on the table.
Oh boy.
Strata management, but you just look at the housing market in British Columbia, particularly the Lower Mainland, southern Vancouver Island. There is a lot of money involved in these decisions. And so for the number of transactions that take place, our complaint numbers are very, very small, probably in the neighborhood of 0.25% of the transactions would result in some form of concern being expressed to us as a regulatory body. So, I realize that may not be absolute scientific proof of the question you're asking, but I guess in a sense the proof is in the pudding somewhat in terms of the relatively few number of complaints we receive.
One thing that Tony and I try to do every episode of Talk About Strata is spend a few moments on those people who are not yet strata owners, people at that point in their lives where there's a change going on here, and this strata stuff is looking pretty attractive. Look at living in a nice little apartment with a fantastic view of the ocean and no work. It strikes me as being something to really check out. So with those people in mind, first-time strata buyers, potential condo owners, based on your years of experience, what sort of buzzwords would you put in there? For goodness sake, while you're investigating this lifestyle, this potential, for goodness sake, don't overlook asking about this.
Right, and I think it depends on the type of product that somebody's buying. If there is a brand new strata title project, there's not going to be as much history. If it is a resale type of strata lot, then there's going to be more history involved with that building, depending on its age. And so certainly if we are talking about a building that, let's say it's 20 years old,
okay,
you certainly want to be looking at all of the Strata minutes from meetings of the Strata Council and annual general meetings, special general meetings for, I would say, at least the last couple of years. And if one of those sets of minutes raises a flag of some sort, then you want to do some due diligence around whatever that issue may be. You know, has there been an engineer's report, as an example, that might indicate there's some type of a problem that might result in a special levy? Want to know about those things. You know, those types of questions, getting the full kinds of documents that can be made available to you through the Strata Corporation. Take advantage of all those things. I would say don't get over enamored with the sense that the lifestyle is a carefree one.
And that's an adjective, a very popular adjective in the selling of such property.
And it is. And sometimes I think that's an overselling of the reality.
Okay.
You know, as we've already talked about, there's more to this than just the fact that you're buying a piece of real estate in a sort of collective management process. Most people, they're either first-time buyers or, let's say, empty nesters who are selling down.
That's right.
Those would be probably two most general buying types of buyers. The first ones, they don't have any experience in real estate at all, except for maybe living in the family home or something they've rented. So they don't really even understand the concept of home ownership. The second ones are perhaps not as familiar. They're coming from a single family home, and they're not as familiar with making group decisions about what's going to happen or not happen. And I think that's where a lot of the issues arise, is how do we collectively make these decisions that perhaps I've never made in my life before, on the one hand, or I've always made by myself.
And Tony keeps harping on it. It's a wonderful line because he uses it every show. The one thing you always have to remember about being a Strata owner, your home is not your castle. You share your castle with any number of people, and you have to be able to do that successfully, or boy, you've just made a wrong choice.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of finding all of this information, that's a good answer, Larry. I appreciate it. Lots of stuff to check out. Again, wear your other hat on the trade sector of your responsibility. Is it your real estate agent's job to get this information to you, or is it your responsibility as the potential buyer to seek it out and do it yourself?
Well, I think it depends on the relationship you've got with your licensee, your real estate licensee. If I'm working with the buyer's agent, I want as much service from that buyer's agent as I can get.
Okay.
And so I want to have that discussion before I even go out and start looking at properties with that person about, you know, what is it that I can expect from you? And perhaps what are some of the expectations that I can put on you to see if you're going to provide those services. So in my world, I would suggest that a buyer's agent, if they have that relationship with the buyer, is going to go that extra mile and get all of that documentation and advise the buyer about the types of documents that they should expect to receive. And then, you know, the buyer needs to do their own due diligence as well. You might end up with a stack of papers this big.
He said, holding up a stack of papers 2 inches thick.
Exactly. I forgot we're on radio.
But no, but you know, I think a lot of people, and Tony, we've talked about this in the past. A lot of people, well, you know, I'm going to pay you just an enormous, ridiculous commission here. Earn it. You do it, and give me the thumbnail version when it's time to sign on the dotted line. That's not good enough, is it?
Well, it wouldn't be if I were the buyer. I'd want to be looking at those documents myself. That's not to say that a buyer's agent shouldn't be familiar with the product and be doing their own research into issues that they know are important to a buyer. But, you know, let's face it, you probably don't know everything that's important to me. So if you were acting as my agent, would you know all of the things that I might want you to research? I don't think so.
And yet people unrealistically place those expectations on their agents, don't they, Tony? We keep hearing about this all the time. Well, you know, the guy, you know, is the guy selling me the place. He was supposed to tell me that. How am I supposed to know? Well, come on, man. You're about to drop $500,000 on something. Pay attention. Figure it out.
Well, they do, but you'd be surprised. I do a lot of seminars for agencies, for retail for the companies where there are licensees that are representing buyers. And you would be surprised if you stand in a group of the agents how much information they know collectively about the properties that they're representing.
I'll bet.
You know, the industry has an enormous amount of wealth and knowledge, and they can provide that knowledge to their clients without even starting to look at documents. Documents are the formality of the process.
Right.
But before we get into this, by the way, did you know this building was it was a repaired leaky condo in 2007. They just had their engineering report. It's a great performing building. This is a great investment. Or this is a 30-year-old building. We already have indications that there's water leaks in the pipes and there's some stuff coming up. The industry collectively really does hold a great amount of information. Don't assume that's going to solve everything. You definitely need to be involved as the buyer, and you need to read the documents. There is no way around it without your own personal connection to those documents.
Communication is the key. I'm Sterling Fox, delighted to have two excellent communicators in studio with me this evening. Tony Juventu from the Condominium Homeowners Association of BC and Larry Buttress, the Deputy Executive Officer of the Real Estate Council of BC, with more to come after this.
There's still more ahead with Experts on Call, the show focused on delivering relevant and beneficial consumer information. This is Experts on Call on AM 650.